Welcome back to the podcast. It is so good to be here. I'm also testing out this thing where I'm recording a video at the same time. I see people making videos, and I have always been a little camera shy when it comes to podcasting at the same time. Like, what if I make some stupid thing? And then I'm like, I could literally cut that out. So, hi, YouTube, I see you. All right, today's episode is what to do with breakup urges. So if you have ever struggled with relationship anxiety or yes, even relationship OCD, your variation of that might look like breakup urges. So it might be that you have a compulsive need to break up whenever you feel a certain flavor of discomfort in your relationship, or you don't necessarily break up, you stuff down that impulse, but because of that, it feels like it's always there. And so as a result, you feel like you're staying in a relationship that is not satisfying because it isn't. It's very hard to be in a relationship and be present when you have constant intrusive thoughts telling you, run, leave, he's not the one, you're settling. When your friends ask you how you and your partner are doing and you say good, you feel like you're lying to yourself. And on some level, you think the response to this is to break up. I dealt with this for many years, as most of you who are regular listeners probably know. I spent maybe 4 or 5 years with my foot out the door with my now husband, who I've been with for coming up on 14 years now, which is really exciting. We have a 9-month-old baby, and I can confidently say that that is no longer the case. I am not thinking about running away. I am at peace with the areas of our relationship that are unsatisfying, and we're actively working on improving things. And at the same time, we are kind of letting some things just be kind of crappy. It sounds strange to say, but as new parents, we are totally new to this. And I think we're doing a really good job, but there are moments where I'm like, wow, this is really hard. And it would be so much harder if every time things were hard, I would jump to conclusions thinking that I need to break up and leave and find someone better. That is not currently happening. So in this episode, I want to talk to you about some short-term things that you can do to work with the breakup urges. I'm also going to share a story with you. Most of you guys already know it, but it's always requested. People enjoy listening to it. And I'm also going to be providing a longer-term solution for those of you who struggle intensely with breakup urges to the point that you either cannot enjoy your relationship or even at worst, not function on a day-to-day basis. This was certainly the case for me. I actually had the latter form of breakup urges, although I did break up with my husband twice, not in the same year. Both times were around the holidays, which I have episodes on why the holidays are so hard for people with relationship anxiety. It's a time of, put it in a nutshell, it looks like it should be very joyful and merry and bright, but also the holidays are really freaking sad. If you have any family problems or estrangements or heck, even family members who aren't there with you, the gap between what we wish the holidays would look like and what it actually looks like can create an enormous amount of pain for people, and myself included. And one of the ways I tried to escape that discomfort was projecting it onto my partner and now husband. The 2 times I did try to break up were often around the holidays. It did not relieve my suffering. All it did was just make me feel the same amount of suffering, but now I'm alone. And I would often realize it had nothing to do with him and then come running back. But because the root of the issue was not resolved, the breakup urges didn't just go away. I got back together and I was exactly where I started. So just letting you know that. The first time I broke up with my husband, or attempted to break up with my husband, and it really was just like me saying, let's take a break to see if I can handle being alone. Of course I could handle being alone. I was totally fine before I met him. But anyway, when you're in relationship anxiety, relationship OCD, you do not think in a logical way. We make these sweeping judgments of ourselves and others. We make these grand meanings. So another triggering thing for a lot of people with relationship anxiety is weddings. So my mom was getting remarried and I was her maid of honor. And the night before the wedding, everything had been prepared. I got a really bad spiral in relationship OCD, and I told my husband I wasn't sure how I felt about him, wasn't sure if I loved him anymore, and we were both sobbing. That should have been my first maybe indicator that I really did care for this person and loved him very much. The fact that I was so distraught over the idea of us breaking up should have clued me into the fact that I do actually, in fact, care for this man very, very much. So I sent us into chaos. I didn't get any sleep the night before my mom's wedding. And for all intents and purposes, it was a decent wedding, but there was a lot of tension between my husband and I. It was so unnecessary and would have been a much more enjoyable event had I not injected all this uncertainty and chaos into it. My poor husband at the time. And then the other one, like I said, was 1 year right before Christmas. Ugh. But outside of that, those two were bad enough. My wonderful husband, who's just been so graceful, he's been so full of grace towards me and still is. In early motherhood, I certainly need more grace than I deserve. I receive more grace than I often deserve, in my opinion. It's very hard being a new mom, and I have a good husband, and I know it. But anyway, that's not what this podcast is about. Besides those two actual kind of breaks, or I wouldn't say we broke up, but I initiated like a pause in communication. There were many other urges that I did not act on, and it's not fun. So if that's where you're at, I'm so sorry. I know how hard that is. I am so grateful that I ended up on the path that I did and eventually started sharing about my experience on all these platforms through Anxious Love Coach. By the way, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but in case you didn't hear it, I changed back to Anxious Love Coach. I became a mom and I was like, I don't want to be Anxious Love Coach anymore. And I switched over to just my name. And now I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do the whole rebrand that would require. And I still have plenty to say about relationship anxiety. So I'm back. That long story short. In 2019, I, on a whim, decided to take a 3-week solo trip to Austria. I was a yoga teacher. I had a lot of flexibility, no kids, nothing really set in stone. And I wanted to kind of not break up with my partner, but I just wanted to be in my own space for a few weeks without worrying about whether I was hurting my partner or not. I did not like the pressure of caretaking someone's heart. And so I decided to go travel for 3 weeks. I still kept in contact with my husband, but there definitely was internally for myself this, I need to figure out how I feel and make a decision about this man. I need to stop being on the fence. I need to stop wavering. So I went to Austria and I met this woman who ran a little farm out in Steiermark, Austria. And her name was Steffi Price. So she ran a little farm with her family. And there was a little meditation center she ran on the bottom floor of her home. And I found her randomly. I don't even know how. And I emailed her and said, I am really struggling. I hear you teach meditation and lead small retreats. Are you available? Can I come to your house? And by grace of God, she said yes. And I was literally there. I was hauling butt there the next day by train from Vienna. And I remember landing and just feeling so relieved because a very deep part of me knew that my life was about to change. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like I was in the right place and that I'd been making the right decisions up until that point. I think in hindsight, I can say that God was leading me there. And Steffi Price is this wonderful woman, and I'm going to talk about her a lot today because she and I are actually running a program together for 2026, and I want to tell you about it because you're going to get an opportunity to work with us. Stick around to the end. Steffi taught me a bunch of exercises. I had been teaching yoga for maybe 5 or 6 years by that point, but these were new to me. These were trauma-informed. These were exercises designed to bring up all the crap that comes up when you sit still for a long enough period of time, but with the kind of safety and the invitation to actually not stuff those feelings down, but be witnessed in them and feel them to their completion, which is something I'd never done. I touched emotions, but then they scared me so much. And I just found another distraction or started some kind of shit with my husband. So I didn't have to feel all the discomfort that really was just like an old skeleton sitting in my closet that was knocking and saying, hello. And anytime the knocking got a little too loud, it's like I would put my headphones on, noise canceling headphones on. And the way that metaphor was kind of like, break up with your partner. So I grieved buckets of tears, what felt like buckets of tears. I raged and I forgave. I had a lot of pain around my parents' divorce that I didn't even know that was there. And I thought I could not handle ever getting divorced. So I need to find someone that is not divorceable. They have to be perfect. And my husband's not perfect and I am not perfect either. I literally cannot live up to the standard I sometimes hold him to. I am a huge hypocrite. And once I was able to see that it was not love that was running the show, it was not self-love leading me to want to break up with my partner. It was pure terror. And if there's anything I can tell people with relationship anxiety and relationship OCD, if your decisions are coming from a place of terror, you are going to create a cascading effect where you create more circumstances to be afraid of. I finally cleared out a bunch of gunk inside of myself, my emotions. I was able to see the beliefs that I had been running the show, both about myself and my partner and women and men and love itself and marriage. And suddenly things became very clear. And I called my husband one day towards the end of my trip and I said, I'm ready to commit. I would love to be your wife. And I know I've been on the fence for a long time and I don't expect you to trust this word right away, but I'm done wavering and I'm ready to get off the fence. And whenever you feel ready to propose, I would love to say yes. A lot of people would have said, well, maybe your relationship anxiety was because he was taking so long to propose. And I would say, yeah, no shit. Who's going to want to, what kind of guy wants to propose to a woman that he's not sure is into him? And I sent so many mixed signals. So it took a while for him to propose. And then also, I said that in 2019, and he was going to propose in 2020, but then the Rona happened. We mentioned our plans. We were going to go to Paris, and that's where the proposal was going to happen. But that trip got canceled. So he ended up proposing, I think, in 2021, and then we got married in 2022 or something like that. The time that I saw clearly, it wasn't that I was choosing something amazing. A lot of times I think a lot of relationship anxiety coaches say, you know, your partner's so perfect, you're so sweet, there's nothing wrong with them. No, my partner had stuff wrong with him. There were plenty of dissatisfying aspects, but the thing is, so did I. We were both running from a lot of trauma responses, and my trauma would activate his trauma, would activate my trauma, would activate his. And so in a sense, I was, quote unquote, settling. But the thing is, you can't actually improve a relationship from the fence. So I had to decide, am I going to choose this imperfect thing and get to work? And am I going to clean up my stuff, my contribution to this unsatisfying dynamic? Or am I done? Am I going to walk out? Because there came a point where sitting on the fence was not an option. So I chose something very imperfect and in many ways dissatisfying and chose to get to work. I will say I stopped with the breakup threats. Not that they were threats, but they were landing as threats to Preston's animal body because I was letting him know that I could leave at any time. And it's really scary to a man or a person that's in a committed relationship with you if you're sending them mixed signals all the time, because they're putting their heart on the line. When you enter love, you make a big risk, you make an investment. And if you're all over the place, they don't know if they can lean on you. They don't know if they can put their foot on solid ground. Are you going to give out from underneath them? And a lot of people with relationship anxiety, they take their partner's response of fear and second guessing themselves as a confirmation that something's wrong with the relationship, when in reality, if you got off the fence, they might relax and show up in a way that was more satisfying to you. Months went by. Preston saw that I meant it when I said I was done sitting on the fence. He saw me showing up and being more transparent, and yeah, things improved drastically in many arenas. And he proposed within a year. I started Anxious Love Coach in 2019, 2020. And then a couple of years ago, we started trying for a baby, and we had our baby 9 months ago. And I would say we love our life together. It's very challenging with a baby, but we kind of knew to expect that. So, and some things are pleasant. I'm pleasantly surprised, or easier than I thought they would be, and some things are harder than I expected. That makes total sense, I think. So, breakup urges are this frantic, wavering, terrified impulse to get control over our inner state. So we feel out of control inside, and we lack the capacity, literally like the size, space internally to hold it without feeling like we're going to die. So many of us, and my past self, tried to control the external. And unfortunately, this just creates more chaos and more stuff to overcompensate for later. Just like the example of me feeling triggered by a wedding. And that trigger created an unsafe nervous system state, which I interpreted as a lack of love for my partner, because it's really hard to feel love for your partner when you're feeling terrified and triggered. And I took that literally to mean he must not be the one. He must not be the one for me. And unfortunately, that created so much chaos in our relationship that we had to repair that later. So when we take actions from these chaotic places, we create more chaos in our lives. And it's kind of like driving a car and you don't know how to work with the gas pedal and the brake quite yet. So you slam on the brakes and then you accelerate to compensate for that. And then you brake to compensate for that. And then you accelerate to compensate for that. And you're just like, it's really exhausting. You end up nowhere satisfying, and you're likely to get a lot of whiplash and injure yourself or your relationship or end it altogether. What I want to talk about is the three, if I had to distill those exercises that Steffi taught me to go back to our time in Austria, if I had to distill it all down, there were three exercises. One of them was called consciousness exercise. The other one was called polarity work. And the third one was called change history. If you ever took my self-study course, Both Feet In, I taught all three of these. I also had like a little imperfect setup where these practices are designed to be done with another peer, by the way. So both people, like there's a guide and a guided person, need to understand their roles in the exercise. It's like a meditative conversation that happens where one person goes inside of themselves and reflects. But seeing as it's a self-study course, I kind of had this imperfect setup where you'd have to find a partner within the course by emailing my team, which works. People actually do it, those who are really committed. But it's hard because sometimes your partner's not as committed as you, or they didn't study it as well as you did. And yeah, it's imperfect. So I also had like a solo variation with a guided meditation that I guide you through. But again, it's not perfect because we're not in conversation. So that's why I run a lot of group programs where we can have these allotted times to practice these exercises. But basically, let's go through the three of them. And my suggestion to you is kind of chew on the concepts that these exercises teach. And I think if you apply all three of them, you will genuinely stop having breakup urges. Okay, because you'll start trusting yourself more. You'll start trusting your emotions more. You'll become more authentic. You'll communicate better. You're going to eliminate the drama inside of yourself first, and that's going to be broadcasted out to the people that are in relationships with you. And they're either going to be triggered by your lack of drama and run for the hills, or they're going to step up and meet you at that new frequency. That's the beauty of doing the work. You either attract or repel your partner and make these decisions much easier, whereas it's very hard to make decisions when you don't trust yourself and you're all over the place. So without further ado, the three exercises are consciousness exercise, which is essentially a practice of being with what is and developing this inner attitude of acceptance towards your inner state. It allows you to increase your capacity for discomfort, to sit with things without running away from them. One thing I love about consciousness exercise is it improved my communication because I was able to start saying more with less. And the beautiful side effect of that, which I wasn't expecting, is my husband listened more, because I wasn't just launching into the Gettysburg Address every time I spoke with him. And another thing is whenever I felt something uncomfortable, like anxiety or disappointment, which happens frequently in a marriage because we bump into each other and hurt one another, I would freak out less. I wouldn't make grand meanings out of them. So if my husband said he would do something and he didn't, I was able to communicate how I felt without making these grand sweeping meanings about him or me for choosing him, or our relationship is doomed. Right? This is something that people with relationship anxiety do. They can't stay with a feeling without making it mean something. So that was consciousness exercise helped a lot with that. Polarity work is about confronting opposite sides of yourself in conflict. So this was huge. I had this real bad with relationship anxiety. I had this one part that really wanted commitment and marriage and trad wife life. And then there's this other part of me that just wanted to run away and be a hippie and not be committed to anything, be an open relationship, be, polyamorous and whatever, and do whatever with having no accountability whatsoever. So this parts between me, the wanting commitment part versus not wanting commitment part, the part that wants independence versus the one that wants connection, wanting even provision, wanting a provider, but also wanting like total sovereignty and not to depend on anyone. A big one was wanting some authority in my life because I liked the structure of it. I liked not having to take responsibility for myself. I missed being a baby where all my decisions were decided for me, but also like not wanting authority because I want to be able to do whatever I want and not have someone to answer to. So these types of inner conflict ruled my life. And that's what created that boomeranging, wavering, should I stay or should I go, all of that. The polarity work is about having conversations between sides of yourself and getting all the feelings out and sharing the perspectives on both sides without making them bad or wrong and arriving at a larger perspective with more nuance. So through polarity work, I made more peace with opposing sides. I got more comfortable with paradox. I got comfortable with not always knowing the quote unquote right answer. And also a side effect, I was less triggered by people that made different decisions than I did because I know I could have easily taken that path. I became comfortable with the paths not chosen. The fact that those exist, I grieved my paths not chosen. And I honored them while also accepting the pros and cons that came with the decision. The last exercise, and this one is profound, is called Change Your History. By the way, all of these exercises did not come from Steffi. They came from a man named Christian Meyer, who she studied under. So I just want to get that lineage out there. These didn't come from nowhere. Change History was really about healing traumas from childhood. I repaired my relationships with my parents, and I forgave them, which is a really important thing because if you have relationship anxiety, you might struggle with a bit of perfectionism around your relationship. You might have this internal story, I don't want to end up like my parents. Well, but you're not standing for anything. Your entire identity is based on what you don't want, but you don't know what you do want. And unfortunately, as long as you're terrified of looking like your parents for a second, you won't be able to heal. And you're still, so much of your power is given away. It's actually easier to say, you know, I could totally end up like my parents. And you know what? Maybe they weren't failures after all. Maybe they did okay. Maybe I got some good things from it, right? So it's not about praising them or condemning them, but just seeing them as human and not demonizing them nor putting them on a pedestal. So what Change History allowed me to do is go back and repair memories, like somatically experience my past memories in a different way. And with my parents, I stopped needing to conform nor rebel to a standard of perfect relationship. Because as long as you're trying to define your relationship based on what's perfect or what's terrible, you're not free. You can't just be. So it's not helpful to rebel against the quote unquote failed relationships. It's also not helpful to strive for the perfect one because both of these are projections and it creates a very narrow space where you can't just exist and relax. Okay, you're giving so much power to the external. So once I dropped out of these polarities ultimately and also met my little one, my little inner child, and gave her what she needed and actually felt that, not just logically in my brain, but in my heart, received what I had always been missing and trying to scramble to grab from my partner and the external and people around me, it left space for me to just be present in my marriage or relationship at the time as it was. It allowed me to just live with the outcomes of my choices contentedly. I saw the truth of how my beliefs had been shaped by childhood. For example, I had one that was, I'm not cut out for marriage because I'd never seen a good one, which isn't true. And the other part is even though I thought I wasn't cut out for marriage, I certainly wanted a marriage, a good one, but there was no way I could have that or even strive for it while I'm on the fence. And I realized I didn't need to live by these anymore and to accept the possibility of heartbreak as part of my jumping off the fence. That doesn't mean do that with just anybody. You need to be able to look at your partner and think, okay, this person's got a pretty good track record. I think I have a pretty good idea of who they are. I'm not trying to change them. So there's that too. We did some other exercises with Steffi, and there was also, I was spending a lot of time in nature and silence, and this was very helpful and soothing to my very confused soul at the time. But if I had to distill all the work we did back then, it would be those 3 practices, which I now share with my clients. And honestly, those 3 exercises as pillars can be so powerful. So without further ado, I'm going to be running 3 programs next year, one teaching each practice for 8 weeks. And when I say 8 weeks, I mean we're going to have a little community. We're going to meet once a week for 2 hours with either me or Steffi or both of us. And we're going to teach you how to play both sides of this exercise. So you're going to learn how to guide, and you're also going to learn how to be guided into yourself. And it's great because when you're a guide, you learn how to sit with someone. You learn how to witness someone. And whenever that person that's experiencing something difficult is mirroring your own inner struggle, no matter what side you're on, you're learning. Because a lot of times when you're a guide, when you're guiding someone inside of themselves, they're going to bring up things that trigger you, the guide. And your ability to learn to sit with someone else's stuff is the same skill that teaches you how to sit with your own stuff. And the beauty of being guided by another person is that you can let go and not have to guide yourself. But you also have the accountability that I find you don't really have with guided meditation. When things get too intense, you can just kind of check out. And that's not to say you can't say, I'm overwhelmed, I want to take a break. But there is something about the accountability of working in a group, being seen by a group, being accepted by a group. I have a lot of clients who feel so ashamed about these aspects of themselves. And we just need to bring those parts to light. And you need to feel how wonderful it feels to be accepted for you exactly as you are right now. So that's the one thing I love about groups. I'm not offering as many one-on-ones next year because I'm a new mom. I get about 10 hours a week to work. So if you're taking up an hour, 2 hours of my time on a given day, like that's my whole work day. I want to be with my family as much as possible. So that's why Steffi's joining me. And we're both going to be teaching these 3 exercises during the spring. For one, spring, we're doing consciousness exercise. Summer, we're going to do polarity work. And fall, we're going to do change history. And what's really cool is you can sign up for any individual one. However, if you are interested, you can sign up for all 3 plus the whole year of support. And what I mean by that is there's going to be an entire community for 1 year. And actually, if you sign up now, this week, this Black Friday week, you can also get December. So you're literally getting 13 months of support outside of those 3 programs. So if you want to maintain your, momentum in these programs, we're also going to be, like I said, hosting a group call every month. So there will be a separate community just for those that purchase all 3 now. So you can definitely do them a la carte, but it is going to cost you more for each of these a la carte. If you think you might attend 2 of them, I recommend you sign up for Unwavering, which is my year-long program next year. It's called Unwavering, End the Drama in Your Relationships. And if you are a boomerang in your relationships, you are full of drama, my dear. It does not have to be this way. You can enjoy safety. You can enjoy stillness. You can enjoy peace. Your relationship can be boring and you can relax and make it more interesting without throwing out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of good that's in your relationship. And you might not even know how good it can get, but you certainly can't know how good it can get while you're all over the place. So wavering is being all over the place. When I think of wavering, I think of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this is exhausting for you and it's exhausting for everyone involved. And so out of love, we learn to be unwavering and sovereign and take responsibility for our lives and relax. It's really hard to do that when you haven't confronted the sides of yourself inside that are terrified and running the show. So basically in Unwavering, you're going to get a whole year. If you sign up during Black Friday, you're also going to get December. We're going to do like a New Year's intention setting workshop for free. So that's my incentive for you to sign up early before New Year's. And you're going to get trainings during the monthly calls outside of these 3 group programs. You're going to get trainings by both me and Steffi. We're also, starting in January, going to offer discounts on one-on-ones. That doesn't mean it's going to be accessible for everyone, but it's going to be a special rate that I don't offer on my website. There's going to be a community where you can post. So you can ask me questions or Steffi questions, and you can crowdsource the Unwavering community for support. It's not going to be I'm not going to offer you a giant response like I would in a one-on-one, but I don't mind you posting and asking questions, and I will respond. And that monthly call is going to be with either me or Steffi or both. And we're going to have an exclusive topic for that month and a Q&A to support you during these programs and also in between them to keep the momentum going. So I will be running these programs individually a la carte for people that just want to do a one program for 8 weeks. So you'll see people coming in and out of the program, but we're going to have a tight knit community for 12 months or 13 months if you sign up now. A week after Black Friday is when I'm going to change the price. So you'll have 1 week, but if you're hearing this now as a podcast listener, I'm opening it up for you early. It's going to be going up to $12.99, and then it'll be $15.99 in January. So right now for Black Friday, you can get 13 months of working with Steffi and I, all 3 of those programs for $9.99. And yes, I do have a 12-month payment plan available. So this is ridiculous. This is the biggest kind of investment I'm pouring my heart and soul into for 2026. And I feel very confident that you could have a very large transformation depending on how much you put into this program and really open your heart to see and be seen. So if you're done being on the fence and you want to make a decision and be able to sleep at night without constantly wondering if you're making the right decision or not, sign up for Unwavering in 2026. I would love to work with you. And that is it. I am very happy to have shared all this with you. I hope to see you in Unwavering. That's it for now. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and a great holiday. I don't know the next podcast I'm going to record because I'm probably going to be pitching Unwavering a lot on Instagram, and emails and stuff. It is tricky selling stuff online while I'm a mom. But I wanted to post this, and we hope that you got a lot out of this episode. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to The Anxious Love Coach today. If you loved this episode, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review, and follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and maybe share it with someone that you believe might benefit from these perspectives. If you would like to work with me, head on over to my website at anxiouslovecoach.com to explore different tiers of coaching options and online programs. Thanks again for listening, and catch you in the next episode. Have a blessed day.